Welcome to Quadratics Lesson 4. In this lesson we are going to be looking at sketching a parabola using our knowledge of factorising. Remember, when we factorise, likewise in number 3, when we factorise we are finding the roots or the solutions to the quadratic. And remember, that's where the quadratic, the graph cuts through the x-axis. Okay? So today we're going to learn how to sketch these, but add in quite a bit more detail. Okay, so step 1, we factorise to find the roots. So we've already done that. Okay, factorise, remember, it could be the common factor, difference of two squares, or your trinomial type. We're going to look at the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is always halfway between the two roots that we find. Okay, remember, these are U-shaped graphs, they're symmetrical right down the middle. We're going to look for the coordinates of the turning point. Most of the ones are minimum turning points. We'll get to maximum turning point soon. At the moment we're just looking at a minimum turning point. We'll also be looking at finding the y-intercept, where the graph cuts through the y-axis, and we'll make a decent sketch and we'll indicate all of the features that we've mentioned there. Now, when we make a sketch, and you'll be asked to do this in the National 5 exam, it's blank paper you work on. If you can, at all possible, do this on blank paper. Okay, we're not looking for accurate diagrams. Right, let's have a wee look. So here's the example we'll work through. We are asked to make a sketch of y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. First of all, it could say fx equals. F of x equals, okay? Or it could say y equals, it's the same thing. Now, the steps we're going to work through, step 1, we're going to factorise to find the roots. That's always the first thing you do, okay? Factorise, this is a trinomial or a quadratic, okay? We're looking for the two brackets side by side, x at the start of both. Remember, the method is two numbers that multiply to give you the -3, and they need to add up to -2. The two numbers that we must multiply would be x plus 1 and x minus 3. Those both multiply to -3, the number at the end, and they add up to give you the -2. Remember, we've only factorised. We now need to get the solutions or the roots where it crosses through the x-axis. And to do that, we set each of the factors equal to 0. So x plus 1 equals 0. Move the plus 1 over onto the right hand side, and therefore we take it away. X take away 1, x 0 take away 1. So x is -1. The middle line there is not essential, okay? You must put x plus 1 equals 0, so x equals -1. Your other solution, the coordinates of that point would be on the x-axis. The coordinate x is -1, and the y value, well, the y value is 0, because these points are sitting dead on the x-axis. The other point on the x-axis where this graph cuts through, other solution is found with the second factor equal to 0. X minus 3 equals 0. Move the -3 across to the right hand side and add it on, changes the sign. X equals 3. So the coordinate of that point would be 3 for your x value, and the y value is 0. So these are our roots. Okay. Step 2. Step 2, find the equation of the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is always halfway between the roots. Now, the roots that we've just worked out are -1 and 3. Well, what's halfway between those two numbers? Halfway between those two numbers, the numbers are easy to deal with. It would be the number 1. If you're not too sure how we get halfway between them, the easy thing to do is add the two numbers together. -1 add 3 is 2, and divide it by 2. Okay, find the midpoint. Remember, it says find the equation of the line of symmetry. The equation of the line of symmetry is always x equals. The line of symmetry always cuts through the x-axis. So x equals 1. Okay, 1 is the middle of -1 and 3. Step 3 in this process, we're going to find the coordinates of the turning point now. Now, the actual turning point, remember, it always lies in line with that line of symmetry. So the coordinate for the turning point must have x is 1. So all we do is simply sub in x equals 1 into the original equation. So if we sub in x is 1 into the original equation, sub in x is 1, 1 squared take away. Remember, 2x means 2 times x, so 2 times 1, and then take away 3. So we've subbed in x is 1, and the turning point would therefore be number 1, and negative 4. X is 1, y is negative 4. Okay. Now you'll notice I'm calling these steps 1, 2, 3 and so on. In the exam paper, they would normally ask you part A, find the axis of symmetry. Part B, find the turning point. Okay. Right, let's have a wee look. Step 4, we're now going to find the y-intercept. We've done this before in the straight line topic that we've just done there. We did mention this as well. You could be asked, where does the line cut the y-axis? Where does the trig graph cut the y-axis? Where does the parabola cut the y-axis? Anytime you're asked to find where does it cut the y-axis, you do the same thing. You sub in x equals 0. Where do you sub it into? Well, it gets subbed into the equation. The equation is x squared minus 2x minus 3. Sub in x is 0 and we get negative 3. So as a coordinate, what was x? What was y? Well, x was 0. We just subbed in 0 and we got negative 3 was the answer. So 0, negative 3 is our point on the y-axis where this parabola cuts through. And that should be all the information we need to now make a decent sketch of it. Okay, so x and y axis. First of all, we're going to put on the roots. Okay, the roots where it cut through the x-axis at the beginning. We found the roots were negative 1 and 3. And remember, it's just a rough sketch. Mark on roughly negative 1 and 3. Okay, there you go. Make sure you annotate it with the numbers. Negative 1 and 3. Then we found where it cuts the y-axis. It cut the y-axis at 0, negative 3. We'll just put that there. That's about negative 3. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? It's certainly below the x-axis. It's a negative number. And we also found out the turning point was 1, negative 4. And again, it's going to be roughly there. I've put also the line of symmetry. So this graph looks like this. The minimum turning point, the wee lowest point there is 1, negative 4. You've got 1 and 3 are the roots where it cuts through the x-axis, and you've got the y-intercept. Okay, we'll run through quickly another example. This one looks a tiny bit different, okay, but we're going to do the exact same thing, okay. Find the roots. How do we find the roots again? Well, we set the equation equal to 0, we factorise to find the roots. Factorise, this is a common factor, this one, okay. You could still get two factors, x equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. Move the minus 6 onto the other side and add it on, so x is 6. So your two roots, your two solutions where it cuts through the x-axis, 0, 0 and 6, 0. Next we will find where it goes through your line of symmetry. Your line of symmetry is always halfway between the two roots. Well, the roots were 0 and 6 on the x-axis. Halfway between 0 and 6, that's an easy one. Halfway between 0 and 6 is obviously 3. But if the numbers were quite complicated, if people find it a wee bit more difficult, it's negative numbers, add your two numbers together and half it. Okay, so your line of symmetry, remember, the equation is x equals 3. It must be x equals, don't just write 3. Next we'll find the turning point. Your turning point is always bang on that line of symmetry. Okay, your line of symmetry cuts right through that turning point. So on your line of symmetry, x equals 3, your turning point also has x equals 3. Simply to find the y value, you just sub it into the equation. So we're going to put in x equals 3 into the original equation. If you put in x equals 3, we've got 3 squared minus 6 3's, so it works out as negative 9. Okay, and remember the actual coordinate of that point, well, that would be, we've subbed in 3, the answer was negative 9. So 3, negative 9 is your turning point. Next, let's see, I think there's your y-intercept we're looking at. Yep, find the y-intercept. Find the y-intercept, remember, where does it cut the y-axis? Put in x equals 0. You need to memorise that, okay? Put in x equals 0. Sub in x equals 0, 0 squared, take away 6 zeros. Well, 6 zeros is nothing, so it's 0, okay? The point 0, you've subbed in x is 0, y is 0. And finally, we should be able to make a sketch. X and y axis, put on our roots first, where it cut through the x axis. the roots were 0 and 6. There's 0 and 6 there. Annotate these numbers, okay, make sure they're very clear. There's 0 and 6 there. Cut through the y-axis at 0, 0, right, so it's cutting through there. And also the turning point, the minimum turning point was halfway between these, right bang in the middle of the two roots, and it goes down to -9, okay, 3, -9, and the graph would look like this. Okay, now every year part of this somewhere will be in your exam. That's 2 examples I've worked through. Those are a full question, okay? It might not necessarily come that up as a full question in your exam paper. It might not ask you to do every single part of it, but when this comes up, it generally could be a 3 or 4 mark question, okay? Please have a go at the questions. I know they might seem quite a lot. Have a go and let me know how you feel. Good luck. Bye bye.